They laughed at the humble boy in the jewelry store until the truth about his father was revealed. Tommy stood behind the glass counter of his family's jewelry store, his hands trembling slightly as he adjusted a display of intricate necklaces. Each piece caught the light, glimmering with a promise of opulence that felt a world away from the frayed cuffs of his hand-me-down shirt. As affluent customers drifted in and out, he could feel their eyes appraising him, wrapped in judgment, and the gleeful snickers of their spoiled children echoed in his mind. They saw him as a mere shadow against their golden lives. He was the boy who didn't belong, the boy without sparkle. Every day after school, he meticulously arranged those trinkets, dreaming of a life that felt worlds apart. He wished to break free from the cold whispers that branded him unworthy, pushing aside thoughts of what could have been, of a father once revered in gemology. His chest tightened with the weight of unfulfilled potential. The whispers of his peers became a cacophony, eroding his self-worth under the relentless pressure of their taunts. A shadow in a glittering world, he often questioned if he had the right to step into the light, but today felt different. The arrival of Mr. Caldwell, a renowned jewelry expert, sent shockwaves through the small town. Maybe this was the opportunity to save their failing store a spark of hope amid his routine of despair and longing. Stepping into the workshop, Tommy's heart raced as he leaned close to the intricacies of gemstones and settings. He felt the beauty envelop him, a distraction from the derisive whispers lurking outside. Yet, within the fervor of the workshop, he caught snippets of conversations that made his heart thump loudly against his ribs. Whispers about his father, a man who left behind more than just memories. A legacy forgotten, hidden treasures just waiting to be claimed. Curiosity pulled at him, compelling him to dig deeper into his father's past. It fueled his frustration with every rude laugh echoing from the privileged crowd outside. This newfound sense of purpose, however, did not come without its hurdles. Jake and his crew of wealthy kids had caught wind of that legacy whispering through the town. They wouldn't let Tommy rise without taking shots. Jealousy twisted into calculated schemes, igniting a desperate desire to undermine him. Each sleepless night brought another layer of anguish as he fought to reclaim his identity. As the days passed, he felt the brooch inching closer, a symbol of his father's true self, yet with every glimmer of hope came a stab of doubt. Could he truly rise above their petty jabs? Could he carry the weight of his family's legacy? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Returning to school felt like wrestling with an unyielding storm. Staring out the window during class, the opulence of those life circumstances fed his longing but shattered his resolve. With the brooch weighing heavily in his pocket, he confronted Jake's sneers in the hallway, feigning indifference while his internal monologue spiraled into chaos. The reality of his father's journey was rich and vague, and as he discovered the truth, he felt the ground beneath him shift. But the insignificant boy in a jewelry store remained trapped, squaring off against a tide of wealth and ridicule. Just as he began sorting through the mix of determination and fear, a familiar face walked through the jewelry store door. What it meant remained uncertain, and Tommy found himself standing at the precipice, his heart racing with both fear and ambition. Would he choose the light, even when it bore the burden of truth? Tommy's mind raced as the familiar face stepped through the door. It was Mrs. Harwood, a family friend and an esteemed antique dealer who had long known his father before his departure. Her presence felt like a lifeline thrown into turbulent waters. He could sense the mixed emotions swirling within him. Anticipation, anxiety, and hope converged, igniting a fire within. "Hello, Tommy." Her voice, warm but tinged with concern, stirred something deep inside him. "I've heard you've been busy since I last visited." She glanced around the store, taking in the glimmering jewels that seemed to vibrate with unspoken stories. Tommy hesitated, unsure of how to respond. The last time he'd seen her, he was just a boy, lost among his toys and dreams. But he drew courage from the legacy whispered about in the town. "I'm trying to keep things afloat," he finally said, attempting to project confidence, even as doubt clawed at him. Mrs. Harwood stepped closer, her eyes shimmering with something unnameable. "Your father had a talent for finding rare gems, the kind you can't put a price on. He taught me so much about the art of appreciation, not just for what glitters, but for stories held within," she said, a wistful smile capturing her lips. Tommy's heart thumped louder in his chest. The implications of her words set off a storm of resolve within him as he considered the depths of his father's talent, the legacy that had been wrapped in shame and rumors. "I want to learn. Is it too late for me to follow in his footsteps?" Mrs. Harwood's expression shifted to one of delight and surprise. "It's never too late. I can guide you through the intricacies. You have the heart for it, I can feel it." With each sentence, a weight lifted from Tommy's shoulders. An instructor, a mentor, someone who might finally see him not as the boy who didn't belong but as the budding gemologist he could become. But in the back of his mind lurked the specter of Jake and the derisions that could unravel this delicate thread of hope. The fierce punches of insecurity once again shadowed the burgeoning vision of his future. "Mrs. Harwood," he ventured, what if I can't shake them off? The laughter, their stares? I feel so small against it all." "Small? You are not small. The challenge will be finding strength in what differentiates you from them." Her voice turned serious, introspective. "People might laugh, but they will also watch. You have the power to rewrite your story. Don't let their doubts solidify your own." Tommy nodded, drawing in the weight of her words. The thought simmered in his mind, begging to be considered. Could he really forge a path of resilience and reclaim not just a legacy, but an identity shrouded in diminishment? The conversation flowed, with each word weaving self-discovery and possibility. As the walls of the jewelry store closed around him, he felt a quiet determination coiling within him, battling the doubts, ready to burst forth. The vision of that illustrious brooch and the talent that could restore his family's dignity glimmered clearer than ever before. "I'll do it," Tommy declared, surprising even himself with the confidence that dripped from his words. An eagerness bloomed at the thought of working directly under Mrs. Harwood's tutelage, but as his heart swelled against the confines of their sanctuary, he was struck by a sudden thought: how would he navigate both the personal and external challenges ahead? His resolve was there, but the weight of potential gossip, of judgment, loomed larger than ever. The future whispered promises, yet Tommy understood that with opportunity came struggle. How would he protect his budding transformation from those whose laughter felt like daggers? As he straightened the last necklace on display, he felt the reality of his choice settling in. The time had come to face the whispers that had haunted his past, and the potential journey to reclaim both his father's legacy and his own self-worth lay ahead. Glancing at Mrs. Harwood one last time, he couldn't shake the question that festered in his mind: what sacrifices would he need to make to truly shine? The next day, the sun streamed through the stained glass windows of the jewelry shop, casting colorful patterns on the wooden floor. Tommy arrived early, feeling an unusual sense of belonging, almost as if he were stepping into a promise rather than a mere store. The air was heavy with anticipation, but it carried with it the faint fragrance of hope. He had awakened thinking more about his father than ever before, curious about the man behind the stories that felt both foreign and intimate. "Today, we begin," Mrs. Harwood said, her voice steady, encouraging. "Let us talk about the art of appraisal. To appreciate value, one must understand history." Her gaze locked onto his, as if peering directly into his evolving spirit. As they settled around a low table adorned with tools of the trade, Tommy's heartbeat quickened. She placed several gems in front of him: amethysts, garnets, and a breathtaking emerald. Intrigued, he studied their colors and cuts. Would he have the eye his father was said to possess? Finding the worth of each piece isn't merely a matter of its appearance. You must learn to listen to its story, she explained, as if feeding pieces of wisdom into him. Imagine where it has been, who has owned it. Each gem is a living history. Tommy turned the emerald over in his palm, considering its weight the very metaphor of his own burdens. How do I know which stories are worth telling? He asked, surprised at his audacity. They're all worth telling, if told with conviction. Each story can transform pain into beauty, she replied, her words sparking excitement within him. This exchange was essential, grounding. Perhaps he didn't need to outrun the whispers, he could take them in stride and craft his own narrative. In the following days, Mrs. Harwood introduced him to more complexities, methods of cleaning, tools for measuring clarity, ways to assess authenticity. It was a thrilling whirlwind, enveloping him in clouds of determination. With practice, he began to recognize the profound connections between the gems he examined and the legacy he sought to reclaim, but the outside world remained relentless. Whispers from school still prickled at the edges of his newfound confidence. Jake had learned through restless chatter about Tommy's burgeoning relationship with Mrs. Harwood and her reputation as a gemologist. The moment Jake confronted him in the hallway, Tommy felt as if the air had gone stale, suffocating his resolve. What's it like being Mrs. Harwood's little pet project? Jake's voice dripped with disdain. Did you start polishing her jewels yet, or just the ego? A rush of anger coursed through Tommy, the laughter echoed around him like a hurricane, a cacophony threatening to drown out his ambitions. He clenched his fists, battling the familiar urge to shrink away. But he fought against it, recalling Mrs. Harwood's words about strength in his uniqueness. It's learning, Jake, he shot back, surprising even himself. Something you wouldn't understand. He stepped away before Jake could unleash another jab, knowing he had stood his ground. Victory lay not in vindictiveness but in defiance against humiliation. Back in the shop, Mrs. Harwood noticed his distraction. You seem troubled. What haunts you, Tommy? He swallowed hard, unsure of how to articulate the weight pressing upon him, the murmurs mingling with self-doubt. But before he could answer, a flicker of inspiration ignited within him. That moment in the hallway had taught him more than he expected. It wasn't just about the gems he was studying, it was about owning his own worth. What if I started sharing the stories behind each gem? Not just the technical stuff but how they connect with people. He suggested, animated by the thought. Could that help me reclaim my voice? Her eyes sparkled with approval. Now you're thinking. Stories are powerful. You must believe in your own. As they delved deeper into precious histories, Tommy felt the transformative pivot, grasping that his power lay in intertwining the tangible and the intangible. Yet a lingering fear tethered him. Could he truly withstand the festering doubt? The path ahead remained fraught with potential turmoil, and the real challenge lay beyond identification and appraisal. What would happen when it came time to reveal those stories, especially his own? With a mix of burgeoning optimism and simmering anxiety, Tommy knew that the next steps would demand courage more profound than mere resiliency. As he reflected on the stories he longed to share, a new realization struck him. He needed to confront not just external voices of judgment but the internal hiss of self-doubt that threatened to undermine his hard-wrought confidence. Tomorrow, he summoned the courage to address his fears more directly. The confrontation that awaited him loomed large, and as the sun dipped below the horizon, the shadows of his past whispered anew. What would it take for him to truly believe in his worth as he stepped into the stories of the gems around him? The following morning, Tommy awoke determined. In the quiet solitude of his room, he could still hear the echoes of Jake's taunts, their sting diminished but not erased. He stared at the mirror, examining the boy who had been doubted, both by others and himself. This wouldn't define him. It was merely the backdrop against which he would paint his narrative. After a hurried breakfast, he arrived at the jewelry shop with a clear objective in mind. Mrs. Harwood was already there, meticulously polishing the emerald that had captivated Tommy just days before. The sunlight glimmered off its facets, casting emerald-green shadows on the worktable as if the stone itself had something to reveal. "Good morning, Tommy." She greeted him, her voice warm and inviting. You're here early today. Ready to dive deeper? Absolutely, he replied, feeling the familiar rush of excitement mixed with trepidation. Today, I want to try telling stories about the gems like we discussed. A smile spread across her face. Excellent. Let us start with one of your favorites. She handed him the emerald, and he cradled it in his palm. This wasn't just any gem, it was a vessel of expression, an opportunity for him to share his insights. Taking a deep breath, he began to speak. This emerald might have belonged to someone royal, perhaps a queen who wore it during grand celebrations. He paused, watching Mrs. Harwood's encouraging nod. Or maybe it was passed down through generations, each owner cherishing its beauty and significance, hoping to imbue it with their own legacy. With each word, Tommy felt an unfamiliar rhythm building within him. This wasn't just a recounting of stones and their worth, it was a declaration of his voice, a means to reclaim the narrative that had been overshadowed by ridicule. He poured himself into describing the emotions encapsulated in gems: hope, love, or even heartache. Very good, Tommy. You're connecting the gems to something deeper, Mrs. Harwood noted, her eyes sparkling with pride. Now, let us see how you perform under pressure. Her challenge hung in the air, sparking a flicker of unease in his gut. Under pressure? Let us invite a few clients in for a demonstration, she suggested, her voice tinged with excitement. You could present what you've created. The prospect sent a wave of anxiety washing over him. Could he truly stand in front of strangers and speak with confidence? For a moment, the nagging doubts shouted louder than the resolute clarity he had just felt. The shop door swung open, and clients trickled in, unaware of the internal struggle brewing within Tommy. As he watched their attentive faces, he felt the urge to withdraw, to shrink back into the shadows. But Mrs. Harwood's approving gaze reminded him of his growing belief he needed to confront this moment rather than flee from it. Welcome, everyone. She exclaimed, her tone upbeat. Today, you'll not only hear about these beautiful gems, Tommy will share their stories. Tommy cleared his throat, heart racing. This emerald, he began, pushing his doubts aside, is more than just its vibrant color, it carries tales of love and strength. As he spoke, he could feel something inside him shift. Energy surged through his veins, igniting courage he never knew he possessed. With each story, he saw the faces of the clients transform. Curiosity replaced indifference, and appreciation glimmered in their eyes. For the first time, he wasn't merely a boy in a shop, he was a storyteller offering insights, not just about gems but about identity, resilience, and connection. Yet, as praise flowed, shadows lurked at the edges of Tommy's mind. What if his sharing led to exposing his own vulnerabilities? Could he articulate his story, rooted deeply in his father's legacy, without falling apart? After the demonstration, the clients applauded, and Mrs. Harwood clapped her hands eagerly. Wonderful, Tommy. You've begun crafting a narrative not only for the gems but also for yourself. I felt different, he confessed, exhilarated yet unsettled. But there's more to share, a deeper part of me that still feels hidden. Then we'll unearth that together, Mrs. Harwood encouraged. Next, you must address your fears, the stories that are yours alone to tell. As he left the shop that evening, the praise of the clients still enveloped him, but a new worry lingered. He felt on the precipice of something significant, yet he was not yet ready to fully confront the question he feared. Would he have the strength to reveal his own truth? The whispers of doubt loomed larger, intertwining with the clarity he had just begun to grasp. Tomorrow awaited, holding secrets Tommy needed to uncover, not just about gems, but about himself. Can he finally gather the courage to confront his past? The sun rose slowly, casting gentle rays that seeped into Tommy's room, illuminating the clutter of his childhood books stacked askew, sketches of fantasy worlds, and piles of unfinished homework. Yet, today, he felt invigorated rather than overwhelmed. With each moment that passed, the echoes of doubt began to fade, replaced by a burgeoning resolve. He found himself pacing, envisioning the stories he would share. For the first time, he considered the possibility that the mundane could transform into the sublime, just as gems reflected a spectrum of light. Each gem was not simply stone, it was a manifestation of life experiences, intricately linked to their journey. And what of his journey? As he prepared to face his fears, he also prepared to face his truth. Upon entering the jewelry shop, the familiar scent of polished metal and gems seeped into his consciousness, creating a calm within the storm of uncertainty. Mrs. Harwood was already there, arranging the jewels in a display, but he sensed a shift in their dynamic. It was subtle, a shift in the fabric of their mentor-student relationship. Today, he felt he was not merely a boy learning but an emerging artist on the cusp of self-discovery. "Ready to dig deeper?" she asked, her voice inviting yet serious. "I am," he responded, his tone steadier than he felt. His mind swirled with questions. What stories would he tell today? How could he unveil not only the essence of the gems but also his own layers? "Let us bring out the opal," she suggested. "It's a stone of mystery and hidden depth much like yourself." As she handed him the opal, he felt its smooth surface and admired the play of colors swirling within. It was as if the stone itself was encouraging him, whispering secrets of beauty and resilience. Standing before her, he channeled that energy. This opal might represent an unexpected journey. Perhaps it once belonged to a traveler who saw glimpses of their future within its depths, each color portraying a moment of joy or sorrow. Mrs. Harwood listened closely, her eyes reflecting understanding and support, but Tommy felt a hollowness beneath the surface of his performance. He was articulating beautiful imagery yet skirting the precipice of his reality, the shadows that lingered in the corner of his heart. "It's a beautiful story, Tommy, but don't forget to fuse your own experience into it," she remarked gently. He hesitated, feeling the tension coil inside him. How? How could he intertwine the beauty of his expression with the pain of his past? The risk felt immense, and he faltered. He started, then stilled, bearing the weight of vulnerability pressing down on him. Storytelling is powerful, but it also requires honesty. The feelings we tend to bury often give rise to the most compelling tales, she urged, her wisdom wrapping around him like a lifeline. Taking a deep breath, he allowed the light to filter through. "What if I told you about my father?" The words escaped in a rush, fueled by the urgency of his internal struggle. He was a dreamer, someone who believed in the beauty of gems and their ability to connect people. Mrs. Harwood nodded, her gaze piercing through his hesitation. "Go on. What made him dream?" His stories, Tommy shared, recalling snippets of family history passed down through garbled tales. He believed that every stone was a reminder of one's legacy. "I always felt pressure to carry that legacy and become someone special like him." As he unburdened himself, a wave of warmth surged within him. He was beginning to navigate through the confusion that clouded his identity. Yet, alongside this emotion was an unsettling question: was he really ready to honor his father's legacy or simply live in its shadow? Mrs. Harwood leaned closer, her confidence anchoring him. "You have a story to tell, Tommy, a truth hidden beneath layers like the opal's colors. Embrace it, for that may just be your greatest strength." An epiphany began to unfold. Maybe this was the way forward, not to merely recount what his father had left behind but to carve his own path while weaving that narrative. Together, could he embrace not just the beauty of the gems but also the depth of his own story? As he contemplated this, he realized there was still so much he hadn't faced. Shadows of his father's expectations loomed large. Could he debunk the illusion that he had to fulfill someone else's dreams? The thought raced through his mind like wildfire, igniting anticipation and trepidation in equal measure. He realized that the journey of storytelling was not just about presenting gems to others, it was also about presenting himself a new story yet to be fully written, filled with courage, authenticity, and perhaps even love. As he prepared to speak once more, a newfound determination surged within him. Tomorrow was poised to bring another opportunity, one where he could look deeper into the truth of his lineage and face the shadows head-on. Would he be able to reclaim his voice amidst the memories? The question lingered, wrapping itself around his heart, as he resolved to confront what lay ahead. The next morning, Tommy awoke with a sense of purpose, the remnants of yesterday's nerves transmuted into a sharp focus. He tossed aside the covers, the light filtering through the window felt like a spotlight illuminating the potential of the day ahead. As he dressed, he could hardly shake the anticipation thrumming in his chest. It was time to dismantle the barriers that defined him and confront the truth that had loomed for far too long. When he arrived at the shop, the sun hung high, casting playful shadows through the glass entrance, illuminating the small treasures that had become his world. Mrs. Harwood was already there, meticulously arranging each gem, her concentration a reminder of the craft they both cherished. "Morning, Tommy. Ready to dig deeper today?" she greeted, noticing the glint in his eyes. "Definitely," he replied, his voice unwavering. This time, he embraced the vulnerability of the narrative that lay ahead. She nodded approvingly. "Why don't we start with the garnet? It's a stone of commitment and strength." As she presented the deep red gem, a stirring within him began to rise. The garnet seemed to pulse with an energy he hadn't perceived before, like it knew the journey he was about to embark on. "I want to intertwine my father's legacy with my own," he declared, surprising himself with the certainty of his words. He was passionate about storytelling, but I think it's time I told my own story. "Excellent," she replied, her enthusiasm palpable. The garnet could symbolize the strength you need to carve your own identity. Let it guide you. As he held the garnet, memories of his father flooded back, the nights spent listening to his father weave intricate tales of adventures, dreams, and heartaches. But instead of feeling burdened, he wanted to redefine those memories. Each story had been a stepping stone, but it was time to chart a course unique to him. What if I expressed the journey of reclaiming my voice through this garnet? Maybe I depict my struggles within the depths of its color, he mused, searching for the words that had eluded him for so long. Mrs. Harwood smiled, sensing the gravity of his thoughts. "Go on. The garnet embodies not only my father's unwavering spirit but also the strength I need to break free from expectations. It represents my commitment not just to his legacy, but to discovering who I am beneath it all." Relief washed over him as he articulated his perspective. The garnet wasn't merely a symbol of his father's ambitions, it was a gateway to his self-discovery, urging him to break free from the shadows. "Very powerful, Tommy," she said, her eyes shimmering with approval. "But remember, storytelling isn't just about the good. Include the struggles. What obstacles have you faced?" He faltered for a moment, hesitant as the shadows of self-doubt crept back in. "I've always felt that there's a crack within me, a feeling of never being enough if I didn't become what my father envisioned." "Now you're getting to the heart of it," she encouraged. "What if the story you tell ultimately allows that crack to be transformed? What if that very imperfection becomes your strength?" The juxtaposition of struggle and strength resonated deeply. Tommy envisioned a narrative where his pain was woven into the fabric of the garnet's beauty. Perhaps, in acknowledging his insecurities, he could show growth of fear transformed into resilience. "Facing the shadows won't be easy," he admitted, feeling his heart quicken at the thought of being exposed. "But I know it's necessary." "Exactly," Mrs. Harwood replied, a knowing smile crossing her face. "Embracing your truth will clarify your path, allowing you to share your story authentically with others. It's in the vulnerabilities where true connections are formed." With that realization, Tommy stood taller, determined to share not only the surface beauty of the gems but the intricate tales of resilience hidden within. His father's legacy would not suffocate him, it would empower him to rise with authenticity. As the day unfolded, he planned his approach, aware of the challenges that awaited but ready to face them. The stakes were rising, reaching beyond the jewels. Could he, at last, confront those he feared most, the expectations that had caged him for so long? With these thoughts swirling through his mind, a new uncertainty took root. What if those shadows were not just remnants of his past but looming figures ready to challenge him as he stepped into his own light? The question lingered, raising the stakes for tomorrow. The time had come to face not just his own doubts but the very obstacles that had inadvertently shaped him. Would he find the strength in his voice, or would the pressure send him back into silence? Tommy's fingers trembled slightly as he placed the garnet back down. The mere act of articulating his truth had illuminated a path he was starting to see but not yet fully understand. Each glimmer of light through the shop's windows felt more like a spotlight, revealing both his potential and the shadows of self-doubt lurking at the edges. "Remember, Tommy, the path to authenticity can be rocky," Mrs. Harwood said, her voice drawing him back from his internal labyrinth. "You'll need to remain steadfast, even when the world doesn't accept your truth." He nodded, her words echoing in his mind as he prepared for the day. Each customer that entered the shop would become a part of this journey, whether they realized it or not. There was an unfamiliar excitement coursing through him. He was on the brink of something profound, yet the fleeting fear of rejection clawed at his determination. As people began to trickle into the store, Tommy focused on their interactions. He carefully observed their reactions to the pieces he presented, keen to find a sense of connection not just through the gems but through his narrative. A young woman with a wistful smile picked up a sapphire, its deep blue surface reflecting a world of possibilities. "It reminds me of my grandmother," she said. "Every stone has a story," Tommy replied, finding strength in his words. "But have you ever wondered about the stories you create with each piece you choose?" Her gaze sharpened, intrigue flickering across her features. "What do you mean?" she asked, tilting her head slightly. "It's not just about what the gem represents, it's about how it resonates with your own journey. Each one holds a narrative that reflects your path." For a moment, the fear slipped away, allowing confidence to fill the gap as he continued. This sapphire could symbolize wisdom gathered through experience. Every challenge faced prickles the surface, just as time enhances each stone's allure. As she contemplated his words, a flicker of recognition washed over her face. Tommy felt a rush. Was this what Mrs. Harwood had meant? The act of sharing his perspective wasn't just an echo of his father's legacy, it was the nucleus of his own voice beginning to emerge, yet, uncertainty returned when another customer, a middle-aged man wearing a suit that suggested authority, entered the shop. He immediately singled Tommy out, looking down at him with an air of skepticism. "This place must rank among the cheapest, considering the quality of craftsmanship. What right do you have to be selling such gems?" Tommy's heart raced. The man's tone dredged up old insecurities, the loudest critics from his childhood resurfacing in his mind. But instead of retreating, he felt the garnet's weight against his palm, a reminder of the commitment he had just vowed to embrace. "I've been learning from the best," he managed, meeting the man's eyes. "Every piece reflects not just its aesthetic, but the journey of those who have shaped it." The man scoffed, dismissing Tommy's words with an arrogant wave as he moved to inspect the diamonds, but the moment lingered. Tommy's resolve hardened. This wasn't just about defending the shop or its craftsmanship, it was about affirming his newfound identity. The shop buzzed with life, yet an unexpected stillness enveloped Tommy as he gathered his thoughts. Each interaction from this point, each choice he made in conversation or in showcasing their treasures, could become a thread in the narrative he was weaving. But could he sustain this newfound boldness in the face of the musings of others? What awaited in tomorrow's encounters that could either strengthen his resolve or fracture it further? As the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the shop, Tommy felt an urgent pull toward clarity. Was it time to confront not only the expectations of others but, more importantly, his lingering insecurities? Just as he prepared to embrace another exchange, his phone chimed a message from an old friend. "Let's catch up. Heard your father's story is making waves." And there it was, the looming challenge that could either anchor him or unravel everything he struggled to build. Would he finally speak about his father's legacy on his terms, or would the weight of those expectations drag him back into silence? Tommy stared at the phone screen, the notification pulsing like a metronome in his mind. His stomach tightened, a familiar wave of dread washing over him. The words from that old friend felt like bait, tempting him to recount tales that had shaped his childhood, yet always tugged at the corners of his heart with muffled anguish. He set the phone down, forcing himself to breathe. Why did talking about his father's legacy always feel like walking a tightrope? His father's revered status, the stories of triumph and accolades, threatened to overshadow the quieter, personal narrative that Tommy was trying to carve for himself. As he resumed his work, arranging gemstones, he focused on the task at hand, deliberately distracting his mind from the emerging tendencies of self-doubt. Each gem felt alive as he organized the display, amethysts shimmering under the warm lights, emeralds full of depth, and citrines radiating cheer. Each piece, an invitation to share in not only their beauty but their stories. The doorbell tinkled again, breaking his reverie as another customer entered. A pair of teenagers, bustling with energy, meandered about the shop, their laughter echoing through the space. One boy nudged the other, pointing at a ring embedded with a large ruby. "Dude, look at this. Bet it's fake," he snickered, glancing at Tommy as if daring him to respond. Tommy felt the tightness in his chest return. The boy's casual dismissal felt like an accusation, bypassing the spark of potential he was trying to forge each day. But this time, instead of shrinking back, he took a step forward, allowing his voice to rise above their laughter. "That's a genuine ruby," Tommy said, holding the stone in the light. "Its color isn't just for show, it tells a story of passion and resilience. You see, it came from a region where only the bravest miners venture. Each scratch and imperfection carries a history of the earth, just as our own stories shape who we are." The laughter stuttered, hesitation flickering across their faces. The boy who had scoffed stepped closer, curiosity softening his initial bravado. "Really? So it's not just, like, something pretty to wear?" "Exactly." Tommy felt a surge of confidence as he engaged them further. "This ruby represents overcoming obstacles, taking risks for what you desire. Just as you strive for your dreams, every challenge makes you who you are." For a moment, they stood still, absorbing his words, their gaze shifting between the gem and him. Tommy hoped they'd see it wasn't just about the stone, it was about crafting one's own identity. Just as their journey was only beginning, so was his. The duo eventually left, their laughs replaced by introspection. Tommy grasped the weight of that small victory. He'd spoken his truth, unfurling parts of his narrative that had previously been eclipsed by shame and insecurity. As the day waned, Mrs. Harwood entered to find Tommy rearranging the gems with renewed vigor. She smiled knowingly. "Looks like someone found his voice today. I think I'm finally starting to understand," he confessed, awe threading through him. "It's not just about the gemstones. It's about how I want to be seen, how I want to tell my story." "Good," she said, her eyes glimmering with pride. "Just remember, your voice is your greatest asset. It will guide you in telling not just your father's tale, but your own." With her words in mind, Tommy suddenly felt a weight lifting. Yet a flicker of apprehension still gnawed at him. Every step he took toward authenticity brought him closer to potential confrontation, with the looming message from his friend crystallizing in his thoughts. His fingers brushed against the garnet once more, and he smiled quietly to himself. But would he be courageous enough to delve into the depths of his father's legacy as his own narrative continued forging ahead? The next day would pose its own set of challenges, but now a new determination burned within him. It was time to confront the shadows of his past, starting with that dawn meeting. Would he finally reclaim his father's legacy on his terms? Or would he slip back into the silence that had long kept him captive? Tommy awoke early the next morning, sunlight filtering through his curtains, casting gentle patterns on the wall. As he leaned against the coolness of his window frame, a mix of excitement and trepidation churned in his stomach. The meeting loomed ahead, teasing him with both opportunity and fear. Would he find the courage to embody his father's legacy without succumbing to the weight of it? He dressed quickly, each piece of clothing feeling constrictive, reminding him of expectations he could feel pressing down on his shoulders. As he pulled on a well-fitted blazer, he caught a glimpse of his reflection. The young man staring back at him was inches away from being the confident figure he envisioned. Straightening his collar, he whispered under his breath, "Today is about you, Tommy. Not your father." His working day began uneventfully, but the gemstones appeared radiant, somehow echoing his resolve. Arranging the display became meditative, each piece representing a facet of his evolving identity. The door swung open yet again, and this time, it was Mrs. Harwood, her presence an anchor in his whirlwind of thoughts. "Ready for your meeting?" she asked, her voice filled with warmth, yet tinged with knowing. "As ready as I can be," Tommy replied, forcing a smile that felt more like a mask than an expression of confidence. "Remember, it's about sharing your story, not just the past, but how you forge your own path with it." He nodded, words hanging in the air like unspent energy. Tommy realized this wasn't just a casual reiteration, it was a reminder that authenticity didn't just stem from narration, but from vulnerability. When the time finally came for the meeting, Tommy found himself sitting in a coffee shop, slightly anxious, staring at his reflection in the surface of the steaming cup. His friend Brian, the one who had prompted this catch-up, swung through the door, an air of easy confidence enveloping him. There had always been a boldness about Brian that Tommy admired yet envied, and now, that very trait felt like a hurdle he would have to overcome. "Hey, man. It feels good to see you." Brian's voice boomed as he approached the table. "Yeah, you too," Tommy replied, his smile wavering slightly. As they engaged in small talk, Tommy felt the subtle shift in agenda, a shift that always came when Brian was around. The conversation dipped into reminiscing about their childhood, inevitably leading to tales of Tommy's father's stories laced not only with admiration but a hint of comparison. "Your dad was something else," Brian said. "Sometimes I wish my dad had the same kind of influence." Tommy's stomach nodded again. "He taught me a lot, sure, but no, I mean it. You really should embrace that. Most people would give anything to ride that legacy." Suddenly, it felt like a weight pressing back down on him. "It's not about riding a wave for me, Brian. It's about finding my own path without losing sight of who I really am." Brian's laughter caught Tommy off guard, and a rush of irritation bubbled up. "Come on. It's easy to talk tough like you want to forge your own path, but can you really? It's so much easier to just follow." The words landed heavily between them, igniting tension in the air. For a moment, Tommy hesitated. This was the moment he could either succumb to insecurity or stake his claim. "I'm not interested in just being a reflection of my father," Tommy said, forcing his voice to be steady. "Every story matters, and I want my own. I want to explore creativity in ways he never could because he was too busy riding his own ambitions. I have my own dreams, my mistakes, and I'm ready to face them." Brian's surprise washed over his features, leaving an unsteady silence in its wake. Tommy's heart raced. Had he just taken a step onto that tightrope, one foot on solid ground while the other teetered toward the unknown? "Wow," Brian finally said, a grin creeping across his face. "That's the Tommy I remember. Maybe you're onto something." Tommy chuckled, but the uncertainty lingered. Brian's eyes seemed to glimmer with newfound respect, yet he was left wondering if he'd truly dared to explore the shadow that hung over his family legacy, or if it was merely the beginning of a long journey. As they shifted to lighter topics, Tommy couldn't shake the feeling that this interaction had ignited a spark in him. Was he finally ready to engage deeply with both his past and future? He felt a shift within, yet the deeper confrontation with his father's legacy awaited him. The real test would come soon, when he would have to face those shadows head-on. Would he navigate toward the light, or would he find himself swept back into the undercurrents of his history? The echoes of doubt still remained, but the resolve to push forward lived, too. As he finished his coffee, Tommy knew the real work was about to begin. Would what he discovered next become a bridge to his legacy, or a chasm he would struggle to cross? Tommy stood in front of the polished mirror in the jewelry shop, a vibrant garnet shining in his hand and the weight of expectations heavy on his shoulders. The reflection staring back at him bore witness to a journey of transformation, no longer was he just the shy boy overshadowed by ridicule. Today, he was prepared to share his truth, to stake his claim in both his father's legacy and his own. Mrs. Harwood glanced at him knowingly as she arranged the display. Remember, every gem reflects a story. Today, you're sharing yours. With each customer that entered, Tommy felt the familiar flutter of anxiety mixed with anticipation. As a woman lingered over a delicate diamond bracelet, he stepped forward, heart pounding like a drum. Diamonds carry stories of love and commitment. Each facet showcases a moment, a connection formed, a promise made. The woman smiled, and for a moment, she wasn't just a customer. She was a listener captivated by the narrative woven into the gem. Tommy felt buoyed by her appreciation. Perhaps he could do this, speak his truth without fear. His day unfolded in a reflective cadence, each interaction a testament to his growth. When a boy his age entered, Tommy recognized his potential for mockery, a familiar face from school. The boy smirked, arms crossed, confidence draped over him like a cloak. "Didn't he know you were moonlighting as a jeweler now, Tommy?" For a brief moment, the old wounds throbbed, and Tommy felt the shadows creep in, but he caught his breath, recalling Mrs. Harwood's wisdom. "It's more than just selling gems," he countered steadily, "it's about unveiling stories, mine and others. Each piece carries a legacy." He lifted the garnet, its vibrant red refracting light like a beacon of resilience. "This one symbolizes strength, the journey we all take." The boy hesitated, the smirk faltering, and Tommy seized the moment. "Each of us has our own battles to fight. I'm learning to embrace mine." The challenge had shifted. No longer was he the one on display, but rather an architect of his narrative, constructing bridges instead of walls. As the day wore on, Tommy engaged with a variety of clients, each interaction building upon the last. A collage of stories emerged, merging poignant tales of life experiences with the beauty of the stones. Finally, as twilight settled over the town, he prepared for the potential confrontation he dreaded, the looming message from Brian. Tommy took a deep breath, feeling as if he were poised at the edge of a precipice. His phone chimed again. "Let us hit that cafe later, I want to hear how your insights are shaping up," Brian's message read. The time had come to address the very legacy that had felt like a cage before. As he walked into the cafe, he spotted Brian at a corner table, a casual confidence exuding from him. The air was thick with histories they had shared, yet today, it would not lead to comparisons or judgments, but rather an exchange of truths. "Hey, Tommy. Excited to hear your thoughts," Brian greeted with a broad smile. Tommy felt an unfamiliar steadiness settle in his core. "I'm ready to share," he said evenly, the garnet tucked safely in his pocket as a reminder of his journey. The words flowed between them. Tommy spoke not only of his father's legacy, but also of his own ambitions, the freedom he had discovered in storytelling, and the power of crafting his narrative. "My dad's journey taught me a lot, but I'm determined to carve my own path. Not just to be known as his son, but to become Tommy." Brian leaned back, eyes glinting with newfound respect. "That's amazing, man. I never saw you like this." As they chatted, Tommy unearthed feelings buried deep within him, recognizing his insecurities, yet also finding clarity in his voice. The shadows that had once constrained him began to recede. He was not just a boy in his father's shadow, but a young man shaping his own light. "Every gem I showcase holds more than mere beauty, it carries history, dedication, flaws, and triumphs," he shared, the flow of confidence undeterred. "Just like us." When the conversation wound to a close, they shared laughs and memories, but for Tommy, it felt more profound. This chapter had been about reclaiming his truth, rising above insecurities to embrace who he was meant to be, an individual ready to shine, not merely reflect. As he walked back to the jewelry shop, he felt lighter, empowered by the choices he had embraced. He had not only bridged the gap between his father's legacy and his own aspirations, he had conquered every inner voice that had once whispered doubt. Standing once more before the mirror in the shop, the garnet glimmered, a symbol of his newfound strength. Tommy smiled, confidence radiating from within. He had transformed, standing resolutely under the brilliant promise of a future that was entirely his own. Tommy understood now that his path was just beginning. The whispers of doubt would always linger, but he possessed the power to drown them out in his newfound confidence. Now is the moment to claim your story. Don't just stand by. If you want more inspiring tales of triumph and personal growth, you need to subscribe now. Leave a like to show your support and help us spread these incredible journeys. Your engagement fuels our passion. Comment below your thoughts on Tommy's transformation. Did he take the leap? What resonated with you the most? And share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to experience the power of personal overcoming stories. Don't wait even one more second. Your support makes all the difference in inspiring others to rise.